This second video is called FAQs, or Frequently Asked Questions, Part 1. But actually, before we really get into the frequently asked questions, I want to take just a second and take a look at the introduction page. This is kind of a nice welcome, how do you do, this is Amarillo College kind of thing, but it does kind of point out something worth mentioning. If you're looking to be a distant student, like if you're living in Montana or Idaho or Ohio or Pennsylvania or wherever and attending Amarillo College, it's definitely worth mentioning that we really are almost entirely 100% online. The only time you need to come to Amarillo in those distance situations, the only time you have to come to Amarillo, as is mentioned, where is it? Here it is over here. It says online distance students will be required to come to Amarillo to take their final exit exams at the end of the very last semester of the program on campus. So we have actually two sets of exit exams that you'll take over a 2-day period. That you'd have to come to Amarillo. Otherwise, you're not required to come to Amarillo, not anticipated to come to Amarillo at any other time during the course of the program. Kind of neat. Also, this does mention in the middle paragraph here that as far as I'm aware, there's a couple of other online programs that are available through universities. And these programs, I think it's really important to note, these ones that I'm aware of, are not accredited. Actually, if you go on their websites, they say they are accredited, but they really are not. Their universities are accredited, but their radiation therapy programs are not accredited. The JRCERT is the only radiation therapy program accrediting agency. So I think that gives us a big advantage, in that accreditation means that people that are professionals and experts in the field of radiation therapy and radiation therapy education have come in and looked at our program under a microscope. I mean, the documents that I have to put together for accreditation is just mind-boggling. It's just volumes upon volumes of information to verify and document that we are doing things the way that they're supposed to be done. And if a program is not accredited, if they're using their university's accreditation status, I can tell you from our experience that our Amarillo College has its own accreditation. And when Amarillo College was accredited, the people that did the accreditation, I had to submit about 2 pages worth of materials, and nobody came in and asked me any questions about the program. Nobody looked at any of, so far as I know, nobody even looked at any of the documents that I submitted, any of the 2 pages that I submitted. It just really was just kind of a formality to submit the stuff, it seemed like. But with radiation therapy program specific accreditation, you can be assured that the program is good quality. So now I'll go ahead and scroll on down to the frequently asked questions section. Now, sometimes if you don't know a whole lot about a program or about a field of study, it's hard to know what are the good questions to ask. So here are some really good questions to ask about the field of radiation therapy and about our program. The first few are pretty self-explanatory, but I want to amplify a little bit on this one that says, I'm already a radiographer. Why should I go to school for 16 months instead of 12 months of some programs offer? By the way, you do not have to be a radiographer, an X-ray tech, in order to apply for our program. Many radiation therapy programs require you to already be a radiographer, an X-ray tech, before you can even enroll in their program. Our program is not set up like that. Our program is set up to gear towards either route, really, whether you're a radiographer or not. If you're not a radiographer, you go to our program for, well, actually, it's officially 2 years, but I'll talk more about that in just a little bit. But really, it's just 21 months from the time that you're accepted into the program before you graduate. Now, if you're a radiographer, then it's 16 months before you graduate. There are some radiation therapy programs that complete in 12 months instead of like what we have for 16 months for radiographers. So if you are a radiographer, you might be thinking, why should I go to 16 months instead of 12 or 13 months like many other programs offer? And I address that mostly in this second paragraph. Look at it this way. A radiation therapy program is a full program. And while there are some classes and some parts of classes that are transferable, so to speak, by and large, there's a lot of information in a radiation therapy program that is just not anything like, not at all like what you get in a radiography program. And we feel that trying to cut the program length in half to 12 months, there's just simply no way that you're getting half of the content of a radiation therapy program going through an X-ray program. So 16 months is the bare bones minimum that we have to be able to offer for our program, to be able to get all the content in that you've never had before in your X-ray program. So I kind of think of it this way. It's really complex and even somewhat daunting to try to complete 2 years worth of material in 1 year. Even in 16 months, it can be, I think, pushing it a little bit, but I think we can do it really well. And as I mentioned here, we used to offer a 12-month option for registered radiographers, but we found that the majority of the students that entered the program were not able to finish. It was just too much for them. It was just too stressful, with students complaining there's just too much information to cram into too short a period of time. So we basically add an extra semester, making it from 12 months to 16 months, where that extra semester is really focused and geared towards getting you to kind of dip your toe in the pool and get you used to the radiation therapy field and the radiation therapy program, while not just slamming all this stuff on you right away like we would have to do if we did it in a 12-month program. So that's some of that information. Scrolling on down a little bit, it talks about the application portfolio, which is basically all the documents that you have to submit for application of the program. I've already addressed this one. If you're a distance student, you only have to come to Amarillo once. That's cool. Here's a question. If you haven't taken many or any online classes, how can you know if you're ready for online learning? We have a module that you have to go through as part of the application process to kind of get you to kind of see how much you know about or how ready you are for distance learning, for online learning. Online learning really is very different. If you haven't done online classes before, then it could possibly be a real struggle and a real difficulty for you, because it is a very different way of learning. So as you go through the computer module for that program, for that distance program readiness, I think you'll learn a little bit more about your preparedness for online learning. The computer requirements, we have a document that talks about that. You're going to get, if you complete our program, and you'll be awarded an associate's in applied science degree. And it takes, now it says 24 months, but really what we have done, if you look at the degree plan that we will look at a little bit later on, the degree plan officially starts in the summertime, and it's nothing but general education classes. I did that on purpose. Basically what that means is nearly everybody that's been accepted into our program has completed nearly all, if not all, of the general education requirements ahead of time. So that first summer of general education classes is really meaningless. You've already done a lot of that, if not all of that. So the program officially starts in the fall. And with that being the case, then it's only really 21 months before you graduate. And again, 16 months if you're already a registered radiographer. I want to take a look at this one, the shot records. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Actually, I'll address that a little bit later on. Now, can you go to school part-time? No. In short, no. Any healthcare program is going to be situated to where you're in clinic, like in the first couple of semesters of the program, 2 full days a week. And then the last several semesters of the program, 3 full days a week. Then you've got classes and maybe labs and stuff along the way. So any and all healthcare programs are really full-time, and you just got to kind of just suck it up, I guess, and just do it full-time, because there's just no way to kind of stretch it out over time. One of the reasons that you can't stretch it out over time is simply because of logistics. If we accept you into the program and you ask or say, can I make this last 3 years or 4 years instead of 2 years? Then what that does is that can limit the number of other people that we accept, because we're holding a spot for you. And sometimes with our distance program, we might be able to do something like that, but it's just not going to work very well. It's not something that we're going to typically allow unless there's some sort of medical emergency or some other sort of urgent and unexpected circumstance. Just as a matter of for really looking at for your best interest and for your benefit, you just kind of need to be able to go to school full-time and just be a student and get through the program in the designated amount of time. Now, that said, can you work and go to radiation therapy school at the same time? Well, sure. I mean, we all have to do what we have to do. I worked 25 to 35 hours a week while I was a radiation therapy student. I worked at McDonald's, and I worked at a library and doing all these other odd jobs and stuff. I just kind of had to do what I had to do because bills to pay, food to put on the table and stuff. You just got to do what you got to do. That said, I certainly would say that the more you can get away with working less, the more sane you're going to be, as the program is pretty time consuming because of those clinicals, especially where you have 2 full days a week or 3 full days a week of clinicals in addition to all the classes and all the studying and whatnot. So it can be very time demanding. expect the program to be the equivalent of basically a full-time job with respect to clinics, labs, classes, and studying. You're going to be spending probably at least 40 hours a week doing all that stuff, and probably on average about 30 hours a week just involved in class activities like clinic, lab, and the academic classes themselves. Now, our academic classes are going to be online, so you can kind of do those in the middle of the night in your pajamas at times. There will be some class activities, though, that even though it's online, that you'll have to kind of coordinate and organize with your fellow students to do those at specific times. And there will be some activities that I will require to happen during the days, Mondays through Fridays, 8 to 5. So the more activities and class stuff that you can do during regular Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 kind of stuff, the better off you'll be and the more consistent your schedule will be. You probably should be looking to do work in the evenings and on weekends, especially on weekends. That's going to be the best times probably for you to engage in work-related activities. Next, I've scrolled down to what is the level of math required for this program. We've got a link there that will take you to the different math classes that will work for our program. Sometimes people feel a little anxious about math, and I'm often asked, is math really a big, important kind of thing? Well, yes and no. I mean, math has never, ever been the reason for somebody to not succeed in our program. If people have not succeeded in our program, and that's really not very common, but if people don't succeed in our program, math is never the sole reason for that. It's always been, combinations of other things involved with that. That said, the math that we have, there's not tons of it. You probably do twice as much math in one semester of college algebra than you do in our entire radiation therapy curriculum. But the math that we have is kind of important. We're calculating radiation doses. It's pretty simple, just kind of cross, multiply, and divide kind of stuff. But it is really important to get that right. I mean, it's radiation doses, so we want to make sure and get that right. So that is pretty important to be able to be on spot. The math isn't hard, but what we have is pretty important. Scrolling on down, our therapy classes offered in the evening. The clinics, wherever you go for clinic, it's almost certainly going to be Mondays through Fridays, 8 to 5 kind of hours. And really classes, the online classes, again, there's more flexibility with that. There may be a lab involved, and that's going to be kind of dependent on where your clinical site is and how they work that out with us and with you. But that may be involved in a little after hours time, or maybe even during clinical time, depending on the circumstances. Are classes offered online? Well, yeah. I mean, that's kind of what we're aiming at for fall 2016. What if I want to be a distant student, but Amarillo College doesn't have any clinical sites where I live? There's actually several parts of the application packet where that is addressed. Bottom line is that I'm not going to look for you to find a clinical site. You're going to kind of get on the web and look at different clinical sites. Then once you find some prospective clinical sites, you'll send information to me so that I can make contact with the clinical site and see if they'd be willing to become a clinical site for our program. So that's kind of basically how that's going to work. If you're already like tight with a clinical site and you already know some people that are kind of like, yeah, we can do this for you, then that's going to be pretty easy. But otherwise, we'll just have to be making, you'll look up sites, get information for us to make contact, then we contact them, and if they agree to join us, then great. If not, then we start the process again and you look for other clinical sites for us to contact. There's other questions here that are pretty, I think they're explained pretty well just in the course of this. Dang it, I forgot to mention keywords. Let me give you a keyword here. So the keyword for this first frequently asked questions section is the word galaxy. How's that? Galaxy. That wraps up this first part of the frequently asked questions. Now you're probably thinking, we've gone over all these questions already, but there's some other stuff I want to talk about, and that'll be addressed in the next frequently asked questions video.